We've sort of become a society where we're waiting for the easiest thing to do. Give me a pill, I'll take it, that'll fix everything. But with diabetes, that doesn't really work very well, as you know.
Well, I think that's why we need strong leadership, because I come to the conference and it seems like there's 400 new pills coming down the pipeline. And what do you think? Do you think there'll be a pill that will make you won't need exercise?
I hope not. I'd like it for the simplicity, but in terms of all the other, no, I don't think so.
When your body heats up and your catecholamines, and there's so many things that happen when under exercise, the hormones, and like the body aligns itself. Oh, that's what you wrote. You said exercise makes up for mistakes.
It does.
And I thought that was brilliant.
Helps, well, it actually helps erase your mistakes. Erase your mistakes with exercise was a secret in my book for living long and well with diabetes. And why that's so true is it just it replaces insulin in a way, because with exercise you're able to get glucose out of your bloodstream and into your muscles without insulin. So it works as a separate shot. And as you know, it's good to keep insulin levels low. You don't want to have to be given lots of insulin.
Well, we went through that in the 80s when they came out with the human insulin. They kind of they told everyone to eat lots of carbohydrates. And then your blood sugars would be high, and then it's like, well, why haven't you been exercising? Or, you know.
Right. It is hard to exercise if you don't eat some carbs, but they can be very carefully picked carbs, and it's best to eat them after you exercise rather than on a day when you're not planning to do anything. What I found was most interesting is just how important the emotional aspects of dealing with diabetes are. That's something that we don't often hear the doctors talk about, maybe except for depression. But it's really important to have a supportive team around you, includes maybe a diabetes educator, a good doctor, friends and family who are going to help you through those rough spots. Just, people you can turn to, your peers. That's all really important.
That's the community. I think we need to work together to build bigger.
And that's actually how we're going to be able to get people to exercise more too. If we take it as the sense of community and we deal with the emotional aspects of exercise and not just the physical.
Well, there's also, I was just reading that 30% of diabetics express depressive symptoms, and we're not treating the depression, especially in women.
Well, you could treat it with medications, but do you want them to take more? My thought is you can treat it with mild to moderate exercise. Then you have the barrier of getting them to do that, and so that's where the fun part comes in. You make it fun.
Usually you need someone to come and get you. If you're depressed, you can't take care of yourself. And that's the intervention this health system we're in now lacks.
They're not very good at dealing with depression. If you can find ways to interact with other people, just to give you an example, people who walk dogs are generally more fit and less depressed because they're more social. You go out with a dog, and as long as it's not a pit bull, people want to stop and talk to you about your dog. So you get that social aspect while you're doing your exercise.
I love that my grandmother went to the gym with her friend Connie for years and years, and she had to go because Connie was going.
Yep, that's it. That's one of those things, is to get an exercise buddy. So if you don't show up, then you feel really bad, or you get a really hard time from that person. So that's a great way to get yourself to do something regularly. What I found really worked is that I asked people what they do. And I had more than 350 people that consider themselves exercisers, type 1 and type 2, that they would tell me what they do for various activities. And some would say that they cut back by X number of units or a certain percent, and they gave me the variables that they take into account. So it's a little bit of trial and error, even if you know what someone else does, but at least it tells you.
You know what I love about what you're saying? It proves to me that the people that have the diabetes have this huge knowledge base.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's often not utilized like you just have. How wonderful that you had 350 people, experts that take insulin themselves, and through trial and error, they figured it out.
They did. There were some type 2s as well, and they may have just been on medication. Some have found that they have a hard time exercising if they take Byetta, which is not, well, they just felt really sluggish. They'd found that some of them would exercise quite a bit, and on days they would want to do a long ride or something, they could not take it. They wouldn't be able to do the exercise. And
what was it doing to the blood sugar?
It was just keeping them feeling like really sluggish. They just couldn't get the energy up that they normally felt like they had.
Is this something you think, is it being reported, or do you think it's just kind of...
No, of course not. That's why we go out and we take information that people have learned for themselves and share it with other people.
Yeah. That's really good. I think there's a lot of things in diabetes that we really should have written down in a way, because patients have this body of knowledge and it's often just categorized as anecdotal. And then it's
It
not
is,
respected.
but if you start hearing it over and over again, like I have, it may be anecdotal, but you get a large number of people saying the same thing, and to me, then there's some validity to that, even if it wasn't looked at scientifically. And believe me, I know how to do that as well, but a lot of times I'll take what people say at
I'm
face
just
value.
wondering, I would think the company that makes that medicine would want to know what's happening.
You would think so. I don't know that
There's one for the books, folks.
I don't know if they've done any exercise studies yet. I don't think so. I had actually contacted them and also about the Simlin to see if they wanted to do any exercise-related studies. People know better than to take Simlin before they exercise as well, especially if they need to treat a low, because that'll make it really hard to do.
Which insulin do you use for your basal?
Right now I'm using Lantus.
That's the one I take too.
And what I found is that if you take small doses, it does not last 24 hours. And I've heard this over and over and over from people. I had noticed that for myself first, and I actually talked to the reps here at another meeting and said, what's going on with this? And it apparently has to do with the size of the amount of insulin that's under your skin. It absorbs more rapidly when it's a small amount. So most
you might
take
have seen my
2.
column. I just did this. It's mathematics.
Yes.
It's the formula for a sphere.
Absolutely.
As the ball gets bigger, the surface area goes up at an r² rate.
Right.
But the volume grows at an r³ rate.
Right.
So that's why when they said 24-hour, they gave a big old honkin' shot.
Right.
And Dr. Bernstein proved that that's higher than a basal. So you have to feed it.
Right. I'm lucky if mine lasts between 12 and 18 hours. So I split my dose, and I actually know some athletes who actually take it 3 times a day.
Well, see, when you split your dose, it's a smaller thing.
Right.
So it might not last even half then.
But it still usually does make it close to 12 hours.
Uh-huh.
So
I've heard the 3 times as well.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that
yeah.
it's like all
It
over the
is.
place.
But you know what? I know some athletes who use a pump but still take Lantus as a basal. It's kind of an interesting concept, but as you know, with a pump, and I have nothing against pumps, but if the site goes bad for whatever reason, you have no insulin on board, and so it doesn't take long before your sugars are shooting through the stratosphere. But if you've got some basal insulin on board, that doesn't happen nearly as rapidly or at all.
So Lantus is working twice a day. How about your fast acting?
I'm still using Humalog. I did try Apidra, and the one morning I tried it, my blood sugar went up twice as high as normal, and I just didn't give it a second chance. Plus, it was only in a pen, and as you know, that's only 1 unit increments, and some people like to do halves and so forth, and you can't do it with a pen.
Yeah, pins are,
But
they didn't even come in 1 for a long time. They were always minimum
Right.
2 units, which would be too much for me.
I do actually use a pen for my Lantus, though, for the reason that you've discussed a lot recently, which is one time I gave myself Humalog instead of Lantus in the evening.
How many units?
It was only 6, but for me that's huge.
Yeah.
I was scarfing down marshmallows and everything I could get my hand on. And I was able to keep myself from getting low, but in the middle of the night I was
Thank God
400.
People have been writing to Diabetes Health that they mix up their insulins and they get an almost lethal dose of something that's really powerful and can put you down. But there's people on the website that say, just read, if you weren't stupid and you just read the label, that's the blame the patient thing. I mean,
know
here we
what?
have how many billion shots a day,
Exactly.
and and now that both insulins are clear,
Right.
the one used to be cloudy.
I think they are working on that, trying to color one. But you do things by rote. After a while, it's like, oh, time to take my shot. And you go and you get it out and you're talking to somebody else. You're not thinking. It's like, being on a cell phone trying to drive and, you're just not concentrating.
One sweet woman wrote, because she prepares her dose and her husband who's in bed. And that's doubles the chances of getting confused.
Right. Lifestyle choices involve more work and it's more personal responsibility, which I think is a good thing, but it does take people willing to do that.
Sheri Colberg, it's been great talking to you here on the streets of San Francisco. And we've talked about healthcare and some of the inequities in the insurance and how exercise, really, we need to roll it out in a brand new way. What would you say?
I would say that's entirely possible, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. Hi, I'm Dr. Sheri Colberg, and you're watching Diabetes Health TV.